Lesson 17. Short-term memory loss and problems with counting, how to cope with forgetting. In schizophrenia, there is a very common phenomenon that many people describe in one sentence: I had it in my head a moment ago and it disappeared. You may feel that your short-term memory has become leaky, that the thread of a conversation suddenly breaks off, that after a few seconds you no longer remember what you were supposed to do, or that simple calculations start to be difficult, even though before you handled them effortlessly. This experience can be frustrating and sometimes frightening. Thoughts appear like, am I getting stupid? Is my brain going to stay like this forever? This lesson is meant to show you that what you are experiencing is a well-known part of the illness, not proof that there is something wrong with you. Importantly, you can work with it, gradually, calmly, step by step. After a psychotic episode, the brain is extremely tired. For a long time it was working in alarm mode and was then strongly quietened by treatment. Antipsychotic medication stabilizes thoughts and emotions, but at the same time slows some cognitive processes, attention, processing speed, working memory. On top of that comes stress, anxiety, physical fatigue, and sometimes insomnia or, conversely, excessive sleepiness. All this together means that short-term memory and calculation, which require a fresh and focused mind, start to work more slowly. This is not a sign of damaged intelligence. It is the result of an overloaded system, which can be compared to a computer that has been running at maximum capacity for a long time. Such a computer does not break forever, but it needs time to restart. It is worth distinguishing two things: short-term memory and working memory. Short-term memory is like a small note on which you write down a phone number or a street name for a moment. Working memory is the desk on which you lay those notes out and do something with them. You calculate, compare, make a plan. In schizophrenia, both of these functions can be weakened. The note is lost more quickly and the desk fills up more quickly. That is why you may feel that information falls out of your head, that it is harder to focus on one task, that simple calculations suddenly require huge effort. This is typical. It does not mean that you will never again be able to think clearly. It only means that your brain is currently working in protective mode. The symptoms you may notice are very similar in many people: forgetting what someone said just a moment ago, losing the thread of a conversation, coming back several times to the same question because the previous answer has faded away, difficulty remembering several things at once, take the key, wallet and medication, problems with simple mental arithmetic, a sense of chaos in situations that require several steps in a row. Sometimes it is enough that someone speaks fast or gives you too much information at once for you to feel overloaded and switch off. None of this is laziness. It is the effect of weakened working memory and overloaded attention. Your brain needs simpler stimuli, shorter messages, and a calmer pace. Now that you know what is happening has a medical explanation, it is time to move on to the most important question: what can you do? When working with short-term memory, there is one fundamental rule: do not try to keep everything in your head. Use what we call external memory. A notebook, calendar, note on the fridge, whiteboard, reminders on your phone. These are not toys for the forgetful, but very serious therapeutic tools used in neuropsychological rehabilitation. When you write down what you need to do, you move part of the load from your overloaded brain onto paper or a screen. Your mind no longer has to desperately hold everything at once. It can relax. In practice, this can look very simple. In the morning, you write down 3 or 4 most important things for today, call the doctor, take your medication at a specific time, do some small shopping, wash yourself. When the right moment comes, you look at the note. You do not have to remember, it is enough that you check. If someone tells you several things at once, you can say, "Please say it more slowly, I want to write it down." This is not a sign of weakness. This is exactly how people after brain injuries work. Writing becomes an extension of memory. In schizophrenia, it is exactly the same. Repeating information out loud can also be helpful. When you hear something important, you can repeat it in your own words. Do I understand correctly that I should come tomorrow at 10? This kind of repetition works like the first step of consolidation. The brain records the information not only through hearing but also through your own speech. You can do the same on your own. When you put your keys down, you can say, "I'm putting them on the shelf by the door." This simple action increases the chance that you will remember it later. Rituals are also very important. The more repetitive certain actions become, the less they burden working memory. If you always put your medication in the same drawer, put your keys in the same place and put your phone on the same shelf, your brain does not have to create a new plan every time. You create habit pathways that over time work almost automatically. This is why cognitive rehabilitation talks so much about routine, not as a restriction, but as support for memory. Problems with counting have a similar source to problems with memory. Mental arithmetic requires a well-functioning working memory. You have to recall numbers, hold them in awareness, perform operations on them and monitor the result, all at the same time. When your brain is slowed by the illness and medication, that effort becomes too great. Mistakes, distraction, and irritation appear. This is not proof of a lack of intelligence. It shows that at the moment your desk is too small to hold all the numbers. Instead of forcing yourself to do sums in your head, you can quite calmly reach for a calculator or a sheet of paper. In many therapeutic programs, it is recommended not to treat the calculator as cheating, but as a tool that levels the playing field. Your goal is not to prove that you can multiply in your head, but to function safely and calmly. So you can calculate on paper, break more difficult tasks into smaller steps, and ask relatives for help with complicated bills. Over time, as your memory and concentration improve, you can go back to simple arithmetic exercises, but without pressure. Do not forget that you have the right to a slower pace. If someone speaks to you quickly, you can ask them to slow down. If you are given several pieces of information at once, you have every right to say, "I won't remember all that, please write it down," or "Please repeat that step by step." This is not being awkward, it is a sensible adjustment of communication to your current abilities. Many guides also recommend that people close to you understand this too. It is better to say one sentence and wait than to bombard you with information that will scatter anyway. You can also consciously train your memory, but in a very gentle way. A few minutes a day is enough. You can read a short text and try to summarize it in your own words. You can memorize short shopping lists and then check yourself against the note. You can practice recalling 3 things that happened during the day. These small exercises, done regularly, help the brain to build new connections. Do not expect miracles in a week. The effects appear slowly, but they are real. Finally, it is important for you to know when it is worth telling your doctor about your difficulties. If you notice that memory and counting problems are getting much worse, that they are accompanied by strong slowing, a feeling of being cut off or clear deterioration compared to previous months, it is a good idea to talk about it at your appointment. Sometimes a dose adjustment is needed, sometimes a change of medication, and sometimes adding cognitive training under the guidance of a therapist. Memory and attention are part of the treatment just as much as mood or psychotic symptoms. You have the right to ask for help in this area too. Remember, forgetting, losing the thread or having trouble counting do not define you as a person. They are a stage on your path to recovery. Your brain has done a gigantic job to get you out of the episode. Now it is slowly rebuilding its resources. You can help it by using external memory tools, simplifying tasks, respecting your own pace and asking for support when you need it. You do not have to prove anything to anyone. It is enough to take care of yourself step by step, and your memory will gradually return, together with your confidence in yourself and in your abilities. Exercises and tools for training memory and concentration. The good news is that weakened memory and concentration in schizophrenia is not a state that is fixed forever. Modern psychiatry and neuropsychology have for years been developing so-called cognitive remediation, sets of exercises that, in a controlled way, train attention, working memory, and other thinking functions. Studies show that people with schizophrenia who regularly do such training, especially combined with therapy and medication, can improve, among other things, verbal memory, attention and concentration, as well as some executive functions. In many centers, computer programs for cognitive training are used, in which the exercises take the form of simple games, tracking appearing stimuli, remembering sequences of sounds or images, reacting quickly to a specific symbol, arranging information in the correct order. These programs are adaptive, they adjust the difficulty level to the person's abilities, and in studies on schizophrenia they have shown moderate effectiveness in improving attention, working memory, and processing speed. If you have access to such training through an outpatient clinic, day ward, or psychologist, it is worth using it, remembering that regularity, not occasional bursts of effort, brings the best results. However, you do not need specialist software to start working on your memory. Classic exercises that have been used for years in cognitive rehabilitation include, for example, memorizing short word lists, repeating sequences of digits, recalling short stories from memory, or summarizing a paragraph you have read in your own words. Good exercises are those in which you first receive a small amount of information, then take a short break, and then try to recall it from memory. You can do this on your own at home, read a few sentences, close the text and try to remember them, look at a shopping list, put the note aside, reconstruct it from memory and then check what you missed. The most important thing is that the dose is small and that the exercise does not cause overload. An important element of modern cognitive therapy is not only drilling, mechanically repeating tasks, but also learning strategies. Research emphasizes that people with schizophrenia benefit more from training when they learn specific ways of remembering, breaking information into smaller groups, so-called chunking, creating associations, using simple mental images, repeating out loud or in their mind, and linking new information to something they already know well. Example: instead of memorizing 7, 3, 9 or 1, 2, you can combine it into 73 and 912s and imagine the year 1973 and the emergency number 912. This is not cheating your memory, it is learning to use it more skillfully. A separate group are attention exercises. Here, tasks are used that require focusing on one stimulus for a longer moment, ignoring distractions, or switching attention between two tasks. In studies on schizophrenia, tasks are used such as search and cross out, finding a specific letter or number among others, simple reactions to a stimulus, tracking a moving dot on a screen, or tasks in which you must respond only to some stimuli and ignore others. For your own purposes, you can translate this into everyday life, reading a short text without your phone switched on, listening to music while focusing only on one instrument, deliberately doing one simple task for a few minutes without jumping to others. Most studies emphasize that combining computer-based or paper and pencil training with real life, that is, transferring skills into everyday activities, brings the best results. If you train memory, you can consciously involve it in ordinary tasks. Try to remember the way to the shop without navigation, learn a short prayer, poem or sutra by heart. Recall 3 moments from the day in the evening with as many details as possible. If you are working on concentration, you can introduce short mindfulness sessions, 5 minutes just observing your breath, listening to the sounds in the room or looking at a single point. These are simple practices that combine a therapeutic approach with the spirit of meditation, without solemnity, but with real benefit for your brain. It is crucial that you remember 2 things. First, cognitive training does not work like a magic pill. Improvement is often slow and moderate, but studies show it is real, especially when the exercises are regular and supported by therapy and medication. Second, the point is not for you to match who you were before the illness or to treat the exercises like an exam. The aim is rather to gently strengthen those parts of the mind that were tired out by the episode, just as rehabilitation after a fracture strengthens muscles and joints. A few minutes a day, with kindness towards yourself and without pressure, can, over time, do more for your memory and concentration than you now think possible. The smartphone as a therapeutic tool. Although modern phones are often associated with distraction, they can become one of the most useful tools for supporting memory and concentration in schizophrenia. You can treat your smartphone as an external brain drive, an extension of working memory, a help in daily functioning, and at the same time a gentle mental workout. Well-chosen apps do not overstimulate or overload you. Instead, they work in the same rhythm in which your mind is recovering. That is why many cognitive rehabilitation programs recommend using calm memory games that strengthen those brain functions that are most weakened after an episode. One of the most commonly used cognitive games is Lumosity, an app designed by neuropsychologists. Its mechanics are based on short, few-minute tasks that engage short-term memory, working memory, and selective attention. Each game requires performing a simple action, remembering a sequence of colors, tracking a moving shape, or comparing rapidly changing symbols. The difficulty level increases very slowly, so the game does not frustrate you, but strengthens your sense of control. For many people, this is the first safe way to get memory going again after a period of severe slowing. Elevate works in a similar way. It is an app that focuses primarily on verbal and working memory. Instead of fast-paced stimuli, it offers calm tasks that require remembering a few words, short sentences, or letter sequences. The program teaches the brain to organize information and keep it for a few seconds, which is exactly the function that is often most weakened after a psychotic episode. Its advantage is its gentleness. The pace of the game is not rushed. It does not demand instant reactions, which is very important for people in the stabilization phase. If you need training that focuses on concentration, Peak can be very helpful. It combines memory exercises with tasks that improve attention and processing speed. The games in this app involve, respectively, searching for specific symbols, responding only to selected stimuli, or comparing several elements at once. It is a form of safe stimulation that slightly increases cognitive load, but does so in a controlled way, without triggering tension or a sense of failure. For people who prefer simplicity and no flashy colors, Sudoku in any version is an excellent tool. Interestingly, Sudoku has been used in cognitive rehabilitation for many years because it requires keeping several numbers in working memory while forcing the brain to think slowly and logically, step by step. This game works like a natural massage for executive functions. It calms, organizes thoughts, and builds tolerance for mental effort. Another good choice for people who are just returning to cognitive activity are Simple's memory games, available in apps such as Simple Memory Games or Memory Games, Brain Training. They involve remembering the locations of cards or finding matching pairs. In this way, they train visual and short-term memory, while not demanding anything from the player beyond calm focus. They are gentle, repetitive, and predictable, and predictability is, for many people, the best form of therapy. A smartphone will not replace professional cognitive training, but it can be its everyday supplement. A dozen or so minutes of games a day helps maintain the efficiency of memory and attention, and at the same time gives you the feeling that you are actively participating in your recovery. The key is not intensity but regularity, slow, patient strengthening of abilities that have been weakened by the illness. If you approach your phone as a tool rather than a distraction, it will become your ally in rebuilding memory and concentration, not an obstacle. Buddhist practices that strengthen memory and concentration. In the Buddhist tradition, memory and concentration are treated like two wings of the same bird, each supports the other. In order to see things clearly, the mind must be both calm and attentive. That is why for over 2,000 years simple exercises have been used that strengthen these functions in everyday life, not as mysticism, but as practical tools for working with the mind. In schizophrenia, these methods can be particularly helpful because they act gently, do not require great effort or intense focus, and yet gradually improve short-term memory, attention, and the cognitive speed of work. 1. Breath meditation, anapanasati. This is one of the simplest and most stabilizing Buddhist practices. It consists of consciously observing the breath, without changing it, without controlling it, just being present with each in-breath and out-breath. When the mind tries to run away, you come back to one point, the breath. This small act of coming back trains the mechanism of concentration in exactly the same way neuropsychological exercises do. For a few minutes a day you teach your brain to return to a goal, to stay with one stimulus and to let go of distractions. The exercise is so gentle that it is successfully used in clinical psychiatry as a technique to calm working memory and excessive arousal. 2. Walking meditation, Kankamana. This practice is especially recommended for people who find it difficult to sit still or feel discomfort with an empty head. Walking meditation consists of slow, mindful movement of the legs, right leg, lifting, moving, placing, left leg, lifting, moving, placing. Movement organizes thoughts. Order strengthens memory. Clinical research on mindfulness shows that mindful movement increases the activity of those areas of the brain that are responsible for selective attention and procedural memory. In addition, walking meditation is a grounding practice. It helps you return to the here and now when the mind starts to scatter or detach from reality. 3. One-task practice, Ekaggata. In Buddhism, concentration is described as the ability to keep the mind in one place instead of letting it jump from stimulus to stimulus. This principle can be transformed into a very simple therapeutic exercise. You choose one task and do only that task, without walking away, without extra stimuli. It can be washing a cup, folding clothes, chopping vegetables, or pouring water. If the mind runs away, you gently bring it back to the activity. This not only builds concentration, it also reduces the overload of working memory and strengthens the ability to keep the mind with one thread. 4. Mindful listening, Sati Samvara. This is one of the simplest exercises and at the same time one of the most effective for people who lose the thread of a conversation or forget what someone has just said. It consists of consciously listening to another person as if each sentence were a small sound to be remembered. You can practice it with another person or with an audiobook. The rule is 1. Listen only to what is here and now, without preparing your answer, without internal commentary. This technique strengthens verbal memory and at the same time improves resistance to distraction. 5. Anchoring practice, Loka Sati. In the Theravada tradition, monks learn to strengthen memory by consolidating information through the senses, color, sound, touch. In practice, this means that you remember something by linking it to a sensory impression, the smell of coffee, the feel of a keyring in your hand, the color of a glass. In schizophrenia, this method works exceptionally well because it allows you to anchor information in the body, not just in the head. Thanks to this, memory becomes more resistant to chaos. Summary. Although problems with memory and concentration often cause fear, they are one of the most typical and one of the most reversible experiences in schizophrenia. Your brain has gone through enormous strain, a psychotic episode, stress, sleep disturbances, and then medication, which calmed the excessive stimuli but also slowed some cognitive functions. That is why forgetting, losing the thread or having trouble counting do not indicate loss of intelligence or progressive damage. They are a sign that the nervous system is restoring balance and needs time to rebuild its working speed and memory stability. In this lesson you have learned to treat your limitations not as an obstacle, but as a signal to support yourself more wisely. External tools, notes, calendars, task lists, repeating information out loud, fixed places for keys and documents have become your additional memory, which you can use without shame. You have also learned methods that organize your thoughts, rituals, a simple division of tasks, doing just one step at a time, and gentle training that strengthens working memory. These trainings are not an exam, they are an act of care for a brain that now works more slowly, but is still capable of learning. You have also discovered that a smartphone, so often a source of distraction, can become a therapeutic tool if you use it consciously. Calm memory games created by neuropsychologists help train concentration and verbal memory while not overloading the mind. Simple Buddhist practices, observing the breath, walking meditation, single-pointed activity, support attentional stability and teach you to return to the here and now, which is one of the foundations of recovery. The most important message of this lesson is, memory comes back. Not immediately, not at the pace you would like to impose, but slowly and harmoniously, as your mind regains balance. Memory is not like fragile glass, it is like a muscle. The more you support it, the more gently you train it, the better it works. Give yourself time. Let your brain rest. Be patient with your own difficulties. Every day in which you consciously care for your attention is a step towards a clearer, more ordered mind.